Episode of Business Morning this Thursday. We're here to bring you current conversations going on in the business circle. So get ready for a very relevant 55 minutes here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's start that conversation from the oil space. Prices rose today in volatile trade following a sharp drop in previous session as the market contemplated whether major producers would boost supply to help plug the gap in output from Russia, and that's because of the sanctions on Russia because of its invasion into Ukraine. Brent crude futures were up $2.53 at $113.67 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures was up $1.64 at $110.34 a barrel. Well, uncertainty over where and when supply will come from to replace crude from the world's second largest exporter, which is Russia, in a tight market has led to wide-ranging forecasts for oil prices between $100 and $200 a barrel. UAE Energy Minister said that his country is committed to the existing agreement by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, which includes Russia, to ramp up oil supply by 400,000 barrels per day monthly, following sharp cuts in 2020. And as the world continues the battle, the outcome of tension between Russia and Ukraine, and as that affects a global supply of energy, the Secretary General of OPEC, Mr. Mohammed Barkindo, has called on global leaders, investors, and heads of government not to politicize energy. The Secretary General was speaking exclusively to Channels Television on the sidelines of the ongoing energy conference in Houston, Texas. He said the demand for oil and the challenge of shortfall in supplies could be further exacerbated if political solutions are not quickly put in place.
We are already facing real obstacles to access investment capital in this industry, especially in our own part of the world. We should not further complicate the situation. It is not in the interest of anyone to politicize energy. It is not in the interest of anyone to worsen the energy poverty profile of the world. Nearly 800 million people have no access to electricity, most in our own part of the world. Nearly 2.8 billion people have no access to clean cooking fuels, more than 80% in our own part of the world. Because of massive underinvestments in the industry over the years, we are still battling how to overcome this challenge of our time. Yes, we are impacted by climate change, probably more than any other region in the world. And we see climate and sustainable development, in particular energy poverty, as two sides of the same coin. You cannot address one to the exclusion of the other. And we have been in the forefront of this advocacy.
Well, let's take that conversation, make it wider, and bring it home now. We have Bolanle Agbaje, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, sharing her perspective on this oil that seems a conversation that has no end for some time now. Good morning, Bolanle. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we saw Brent go from yesterday at about 6 p.m. I know I saw it at about 121. Yes. This morning is 113, 110. I mean, the swing is just so much.
Yes, it came after, the U.S. and the U.K. had already mentioned that they would definitely impose sanctions on Russia. And at the same time, U.S. had pledged that, they would definitely increase oil production within the country to actually, cover up the supply shortfall. And they also called out, OPEC and OPEC Plus to, look for ways to actually cover up this supply.
But I mean, what the U.S. released is not enough.
It's definitely
very
not
far away from
it's very far away to cover up for what they've missed out from Russia. But I think what most investors will be looking at now is what OPEC and OPEC Plus will be doing. I think the next meeting is on the 31st of March, and they'll probably in that meeting they'll probably decide whether to increase supply or keep supply the way it is, just because of their relationship with Russia at the moment.
So all this boycotting banning of Russian oil and, you know, plans to boycott for countries like the UK and all that. What's OPEC Plus or OPEC? Because Russia is a member of OPEC Plus.
Yes.
Now, is there a way to separate it? You know, when you say, okay, you still have OPEC Plus bringing out what they have as a market,
yes,
as a cartel,
yes,
you know, into the global space, and people are boycotting Russian products. So how do you relate it?
Yes, I think, you know, Russia is, well, OPEC Plus is trying to, you know, make sure they tread lightly, not to annoy Russia in the sense, just because, you know, it took some time before Russia actually supported this act of, you know, cutting supply and, you know, trying to boost prices. But at the same time, OPEC Plus is more or less watching on the sidelines. Iraq and UAE have come out to mention that they are ready to increase, you know, production if OPEC Plus would, you know, support this. So it's something I'm sure they would probably discuss in their next meeting. At the same time, countries like the US and the UK are also talking about, you know, renewable, you know, oil, renewable sources of energy, and looking for ways to actually, you know, increase investment in that to reduce the dependence on oil and gas.
So what happens if Russia says, okay, because of all of these sanctions, we want to retaliate, we don't want to be part of OPEC Plus anymore?
What then happens is that, you know, I think the initial impact of that would be a significant surge in prices, which is necessarily good for us. But at the same time, you know, what happens to the demand or the excess demand in the market? And more or less, you know, people would more or less suffer for this in the sense that, you know, the price of gasoline in the US, for example, about $4 per liter is at record highs at the moment, and it's just going to go up from there if that happens.
So the U.S. cannot ramp up their production? But there's a limit to every capacity.
Exactly,
anyway.
Because to ramp up supply, you have to more or less go back to the drawing board, increase investment, and all of that takes time.
And have time now.
Yes, exactly. There's a significant time lag from production to actually refine, you know, the crude that you actually get. So they had not done that in the past, and for them to do that now, it actually requires a lot of...
We cannot do that now.
Well, we cannot do that. We don't have the potential at the moment. We're facing many situations to do with force majeures, maintenance, community issues. That has not been resolved. Today, this morning, I still heard on the news about bandits, you know, all of that situation going on. Vandalism going on.
The federal government says it loses 15 billion naira.
Yes, it's a lot of money, and you know that with that happening, there is no way you know would see an increase in investment in the short run, and that also goes back to our foreign portfolio investment, foreign portfolio inflows that has dropped significantly. It's at a 5-year low at the moment, and it's as simple as this. As an investor abroad, looking at opportunities to make, you know, significant returns, you're most likely going to be looking at other spaces in the global market, especially when it comes to commodities. Commodities are paying huge at the moment. Why would you look at a country that is facing, you know, challenges to do with exchange rate volatility, interest, inflation at record highs, you know, eroding their returns? It's a no-brainer.
Help us in this.
Who?
PIA.
Well, no. Yes, it's definitely it's on hold at the moment just because of what's going on. So that's, you know, those are some of the issues that, you know, are affecting some of these investment flows, and also the impact on our external reserves, which is still stuck at about $39 billion.
And while all of this is going on, aviation fuel and diesel, they are hitting the roof.
Yes, aviation.
And of course, the impact is spreading to everything and everywhere.
Exactly. Jet fuel, which is a deregulated market, would have definitely felt the impact of high oil prices. I think it's currently trading at about 607 naira per liter.
And this is going to be up to 700 by next week.
It's going up from there. And, you know, most of these airlines, especially the domestic airlines, have come out to say most of their airplanes would actually be grounded because they cannot afford, you know, this particular jet fuel at this price. Jet fuel contributes about 40% to the cost of, you know, aviation. It's more or less like the oxygen for aviation, so they speak. And, you know, when that is significantly increased, it definitely would affect performance and, you know, the cost of operations.
And manufacturing. Manufacturers use diesel.
Diesel, yes. Diesel currently is about 650 naira per
and
liter.
I think just last week it was about 300 naira.
Well, last week it was up, 300.
Yeah,
300 plus. Then on Monday it went to about 445, and today is about 600, and it's apparently, I spoke to some of the attendants at most of the fuel stations today, and they've mentioned that it's actually going to go to about 700 as at today. So those are some of the issues that we're looking at, but it's a no-brainer in the sense that oil price is going up, diesel will definitely go up.
Because it's deregulated.
Yes, and the only reason why fuel price is not going up is because of the subsidy. So technically, in most countries, you have a situation where fuel price is actually more than diesel price because it costs more.
I know some people, I had a conversation with some of my colleagues, and they said they still buy petrol at the normal price. I've not been buying at a normal price.
Well, I don't know where they are buying their petrol
from. I've not been buying mine at a normal price, so I'm not enjoying any subsidy.
Yes, and talking about, the money you also give some of the attendants to actually get this fuel. Although we haven't seen, the queues have really significantly reduced, so that's a good thing. But going forward, how long would oil price remain at this level, and how long can we keep our pump price at this level is another question too.
That's another big question.
I think the good part of this is the fact that commodity prices are resilient at the moment. We're not seeing significant hike in commodity prices. And
like which commodity are you talking about?
Well, rice, the staples, rice, beans, tomatoes. Well, rice increased significantly, but that was in this week. That had been, on from last week. But some of these prices are, and I guess it's because of the demand. The demand is not as much. Most individuals don't have money in their pocket to buy more rice or buy, more of these staples. So it's a bit resistant at the moment. But going forward, I don't know what to say about that.
Transport has gone up.
Transportation will go up.
Because eventually, anyone who goes to get his or her supply and has to pay more will find a way to pass it to the customer.
Definitely, definitely. And also, the fact that diesel price is still skyrocketing at the moment, it's only a matter of time before, most of these manufacturers start to feed that into, the price of many commodities within the market space.
And the sad thing is we would have had an opportunity to cushion some of this.
Definitely, if we were producing.
If we were producing, it would have been a good time.
Yes.
There'll be more money, a reserve, and it will be able to cushion some of this.
Exactly. Like, for example, in South Africa is one of the top producers of corn, and they've seen, this Russian invasion as an opportunity to, cover up the shortfall in the market. Corn currently trades at about $700+ per ton and per metric ton, and it's a good investment space for them at the moment. So those are some of the issues, some of the opportunities they're trying to take advantage of. Whereas in Nigeria, apart from the fact that cocoa, we're trying to increase our production in cocoa at the moment, the Harmattan winds have ended, so everybody's looking at the mid-crop a cocoa harvest, and with the rains coming up, we should expect cocoa to actually do well for us. But at this point, we should be talking about many other agricultural commodities that we actually, produce.
When you talk about corn, and I know that even before the Russian invasion and all that, corn was a major. And I spoke to a feed miller yesterday, and he said that, their safe haven had been wheat.
Yes.
That's where they were, turning into, and now they can't even buy the wheat. They don't even have access to. So I don't know what's going to happen to eggs and bread and all the.
An egg now goes for 100 naira per egg. So it's a
for one egg.
For one egg. it's what was ordinarily expected. We don't produce enough wheat to even attend to the demand within the market. So talk about when you're missing out on exports from Russia. It's going to significantly.
We don't produce enough, or we don't produce the quality of what we need?
It's both. So we don't produce enough, and most of what we produce actually goes in the bin, in essence, because we actually lack storage. Yes, it's wasted. When it comes to quality, we've not been able to meet international standards. Or the process of actually meeting requires significant investment in the production of wheat. So that we haven't really tapped in. We definitely do have some wheat producers, but it's just not enough with what. And by the time they meet up the demand within the markets, there's nothing left to export for Nigeria. And just putting it out there, nickel is one of the commodities that has literally gone out of when it comes to pricing of some of these commodities. Nickel actually reached about $100,000 never seen in this history, like never ever seen, to the point where
so
the London
not a 13-year high
is
or
not
20-year high.
Some have even said it's 145-year high, but I don't know how they know that, because I don't know who was existing at that time, but it's a situation where the London Metal Exchange actually had to stop trading because, you know, they wanted to keep the integrity of the institution and, you know, make sure that there's enough liquidity in the market. So to get to that point, and that is just because Russia produces about 10%, or exports about 10% of nickel, and even the battery grade nickel is, you know, exported by Russia. I think about 10 to 15% of that. So, and this particular battery grade is actually used for electric cars. So if you're cutting out, you know, Russia from the supply, obviously, you know, prices would literally skyrocket.
So there goes the dream of the world to embrace electric vehicles.
To actually, you know, be less reliant on oil. But it's I think for now, what we'll most likely do is just, you know, watch and see what happens with this Russian invasion and how, you know, these sanctions would actually affect Russia. Would they actually back down, or would they, you know, continue?
Yeah, they're also having their own difficulties also.
No, definitely.
Meeting up with their debt, a lot of their
frozen assets,
their currency is...
even cryptocurrency has shut them out as well. You have hackers that have actually, you know, shut Russia out from investing within that space. So I don't know how long they would actually survive with this for. But
and they threaten to turn off their gas.
But it's actually...
Do you think they can do it?
It's possible.
Because they will also miss out. I mean, that's just one safe haven for them at this time, or, you know...
Because I think the sanctions are not on gas at the moment.
Yes, they're not.
So it's possible they might retaliate, you know, with shutting off their gas. But who does that benefit? Because they actually need the money.
Exactly, that's what I said. I mean, that's where they're getting money from at this time. They're being shut from almost...
Well, I'm sure right now as we
speak,
they're probably on the table deciding, you know, what to do when it comes to... Hopefully they back down. Backing down will be great for all nations in the world, and we can go back to our globalization. It's just very sad that after recovering from COVID, and we haven't even reached our full recovery yet, you know, this had to happen and, you know, draw most of these economies back. So technically what we're facing in Nigeria is being faced, you know, in other countries, but I think the only difference is that, you know, most of the governments of other countries would look for ways to make sure that the people of the nation don't suffer as much.
But I do think that Nigeria has a lot of lessons to learn
from
Russia.
I mean,
we're talking of nickel, we're talking of palladium, we're talking of oil, we're talking of gas, we're talking of wheat. Russia is the second largest export, and not just with potentials, but they actually develop these resources and they're able to earn, you know, international...
And it's from what you played earlier on, I think the most important thing I took from that is for the government not to actually politicize, you know, the oil markets. Is now they're making huge profits from it, you know, from the little that they're selling, and it's tempting to want to, you know, get into that market and play, you know, dirty within the market. So it's something that, you know, we don't need at the moment to make things worse for us.
So these are our portfolio investments. Is there anywhere we can boost it?
For now, it's only, except we, you know, work on our economy, reduce inflation. Right now, you know, money supply is saturated.
Reduction of inflation at this time seems like far-fetched.
It's very far-fetched, you know, and exchange rate volatility right now in the parallel market is currently trading at about 577 naira to the dollar. It's not great. You know, you bring in your dollars at a certain amount. You don't know if, you know, it would not favor you when you're taking back your returns. And, you know, so those are some of the issues that investors are more or less thinking about. Like I mentioned, the commodity space is huge. They're making huge gains from it to the point where they actually had to shut down, you know, the metal exchange. And it just shows you where investors are looking at.
And it shows you what would have been making at this time if we had developed.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Bolanle Agbaje.
Thank you for having me.
Well, so sad we have to be talking about what could and what should and all that. But one day we'll get there.
We will.
Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a break now. After the break, we'll continue. You know, that celebration we're doing of the women is throughout this week. So we'll go to that series on Business Morning. This is Channels Television. Welcome back. Well, over the years, there's been indications that there's been improvements in socio-economic opportunities made available and accessible to women. But there's still a lot of room for improvement. Nigeria received a score of 63.1 out of 100 on the Women, Business and the Law Index. This score is lower than both the regional average for sub-Saharan Africa, which is 71, and global average, which is 76. for this for 2021. Well, we have Gbemisola Alonge, Senior Development Analyst, joining us now. She's with Stairs Business, joining us now to give insight to this report, what she makes of it. Hello, Gbemisola. Good morning.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So give us an overview of this report, the implications, and what it means in the everyday life of women in Nigeria.
So basically, first thing I would like to point out is that the survey for the report was only carried out in Lagos. So most of what we're seeing is just mainly focused on Lagos. So it cuts across different things from mobility, and by mobility I mean like how easy it is for women to move from one place to another, and also across the different levels, socioeconomic levels. So it covers things like household restrictions, workplace situations, pay, marriage, so parenthood. So just to start with parenthood, right? It covers, so this report focuses on how easy it is for women to sort of return back to work when they become parents, how much support they're getting legally from their partners, their male partners, and things like that. And in this particular segment, Nigeria scores 0. And that's because women don't get enough paid leave from work. There's no law restricting employers from not firing their staff when they sort of go on parental leave. There's no paid leave for fathers. So there's just so many restrictions that are just preventing women from being able to perform optimally once they become parents. Another thing is in terms of pay, like there's still restrictions that prevent women from working in certain types of
industry,
employments, some certain types of industries. Sometimes they can't even work overtime or overnight. There's just so many things that just preventing people from...
let me find out a bit on that, because when I saw that in the report, I was kind of interested in that. When we have this rule or, restriction of women into some industry or some times of the day, is it for women's safety, or is it limiting women from growing in their careers?
So it's limiting, right? If it's safe for a man to go to work at night, then it should be safe for a woman as well. Then there should be enough, like whatever infrastructure needs to be in place that makes it safe for a man rather, should also be made available for women to thrive. So I understand that, like, I mean, it could be a security thing, they're looking out for the women, but make it such that women can sort of work at any time. So at the end of the day, the fight is really for equality. Let there be equality of choices. Let people be able to choose when to work and when not to work. So if I decide that, I'm more productive at night and this is when I choose to work, I should not be restricted because there's no law covering, providing for me to work at that time, or there are just issues around me being able. So at the end of the day, people should have choices, and whatever infrastructure has been put in place that would allow men to carry out some certain activities should also be put in place for women.
All right, and then in Lagos, there was a legislation in 2011 on sexual harassment in employment. How effective has that legislation been so far?
I mean, it's difficult to say because to know how effective it's been, we need to have a baseline and see how many sorts of reports we're getting today. But then I guess the Lagos state government, especially the gender-based violence department, has been big on sort of getting reports, especially during COVID. We saw that there are a lot of reports about like domestic violence and even just sexual violence in general against women. So there's been some progress in terms of just the awareness of it. So people knowing that they can report these things. The fact that it's a law, at all just makes it even easier for people to sort of report and expect that their issues can be followed up. And that's what the department is actually doing. They're ensuring that at every point in time, when people report, they push the situation much further so that they can ensure that the women get justice. And once one person gets justice, it opens the door for other people to get justice. And I think that's all that matters. There's still a lot of work to do. There's still fear in being able to report issues. So there's a legislation preventing people or allowing people to sort of report sexual violence or sexual discrimination, but then there is no law sort of prohibiting people from discrimination based on their gender. So it's possible that someone is being discriminated against or harassed in their workplace and they report, but then when they're dismissed as a result of their gender, there's no law sort of protecting them at that point in time. So even if the person is able to get justice, there's no guarantee that they would stay in their jobs. And that's where sort of the link is broken. So in order to ensure that women are protected, and even generally everyone is protected, we must ensure that we sort of take it a step further, ensure that even when these women get in jobs, they're not discriminated against, they don't prevent them from getting promotions or from even getting jobs at all because they're women.
So who should ensure, because we have the law already, that's, I think, is government's responsibility. So who should now ensure this enforcement and then looking at the, these areas that you have noted?
So, there's already a law preventing or sort of prohibiting or covering the sexual harassment bits, but there's no law saying that women cannot be discriminated against when they're trying to get jobs. There's no law that prevents women from being discriminated against when they will need to get some certain jobs. And women are still being prohibited from participating in certain roles. So it's very possible. So these are the loopholes that people can sort of exploit when they're trying to punish women for maybe reporting certain situations. So that is what government needs to do, ensure that there are more laws that sort of surround protecting women, especially when they need to work and the kind of jobs that they get.
All right, so let's closely related to that is the sexual harassment in schools. This was big on the news some time ago. We don't see it in the front burner, but does it mean it's better now? It's over now?
I wouldn't say it's over because we're just not hearing about it. The absence of war is not necessarily peace, but there's certainly a lot of, if there's like infrastructure on ground for people to sort of report and seek justice, which is a great thing. So we're not going to rest and say, okay, now this issue has been solved and we can now go to bed. No, we would still need to ensure that there's like, enough data. We need people to sort of publish the police and just law enforcement agencies need to publish a lot of information about this. Let's know what's happening around us, and let's also ensure that at every point in time when people are reporting, there's a follow through, and then there's protection for the people who actually come to report. But I think that right now the government putting these things in place is progress, but that does not mean there's no sexual harassment in schools anymore.
So Nigeria got 50 out of 100 on pay indicator. Is there any law that ensures equality in payments, remuneration?
So in terms of pay, I think that, they haven't enacted a law that says women and men should get paid the same way. And even women don't necessarily, there's another survey that shows us that across Nigeria, although women, it's very possible for women to get into a certain role and I guess get to middle management. Not a lot of women get to board positions. Not a lot of women get to senior management positions. And that's the issue, right? And even the women who are working in certain organizations don't necessarily get the same pay or get paid the same as men. And there's no law that prohibits or prevents people from that prevents employers from treating women, discriminatorily in terms of giving them the same pay. So I think that's the first step. That's even one of the reasons why Nigeria scored, or Lagos in this case, scored 50 out of 100 in this category, because there's no law that says that an employer should not pay a man more than a woman.
But shouldn't it be based on your work? If you are employed as a reporter, for instance, whether you're male or you're female, I mean, shouldn't it be based on your experience, what you're bringing to the table?
Exactly. So it should be merit-based purely, but that's not happening. And there's no law that ensures that it's merit-based.
What is Nigeria losing, with this persistent, consistent inequality that we see in both the business space and the socio-economic space? What is Nigeria losing?
So several studies, several research papers have highlighted that employing a woman, empowering women just makes for a much more productive population. First, even if we look at it mathematically, like Nigeria currently has an equal split in terms of population. So that means if you're not empowering half of your population, you're already working on like 2 wheels out of 4. So that's already a problem. Another thing is women are known to have like to hire more people, to have more productive roles. There's another survey by the World Bank that says that women work fewer hours, like women-owned businesses, request for fewer hours and fewer staff, yet they're more productive than the male-owned businesses. And even in some cases, when women sort of switch over to male-dominated sectors, they are a lot more productive than the males in those sectors. So there's already like some sense of women, being more productive if you put them in certain roles. And I mean, Nigeria just continuously not putting things in place to ensure that this is the case is just preventing us from being as optimal as we should. As a matter of fact, this same World Bank report, I think it's called the Profiting from Parity report. It basically tells us that Nigerian women, there's a profit gap of from like I think 7% to 52% that women sort of suffer from when they go into business. So what that basically means is that men have the chance of earning about 52% more profit than women. And that's because of certain barriers. You see situations where in the agri sector, although women make up a third of the employment or the employees or people just working in the agri sector, less than 10% of the women own actual land, which means that they cannot they're not free. They don't have the freedom to do with their land as they please. And sometimes they have to be, regulated or just sort of restricted by certain legislation. Even this report, like I said, is just focused on Lagos. In some other parts of Nigeria, it's a lot worse. It's a lot deeper, and just women face a lot more restrictions. In businesses even, we see that women make up a lot more micro businesses. The female-owned businesses are a lot more micro than females just head more micro businesses than men. And that just means that they have little access to more resources. They just always, all these restrictions that just prevent them from being more productive. And if research has already said that having a more educated and more, having more gender parity means more productive economies. That means Nigeria is just cheating itself by not allowing women to be more productive and more, and just giving them room to do more for the country.
All right. Just before we let you go, I mean, the talk of businesses and profits and how are women when it comes to corporate responsibility?
So first thing we need to note is, like I said, although women, I think there's been a rise in entrepreneurship by women, but then these women start small and micro businesses, which means that the kind of processes that they have, there's just restrictions. They're less financially responsible. They're less able to access finance. So, I mean, if you're not keeping your books the adequate way, you're not able to go to a bank to, get a loan. You're not able to get formal support. You're not, when the CBN, for instance, rolls out support, when they roll out some support for businesses, you can't participate just because you don't have the structure in place. So these are the things that women sort of face, and that's because they get very little support. Although there's been a rise in entrepreneurship by women, it's mostly driven by the desire to be out of poverty rather than passion for whatever it is that they're doing. And while, people being, sorry. Well, the drive for entrepreneurship, I mean, it's not bad for women to sort of open business, but if they're not getting the adequate support, if they're not getting support in terms of, keeping their books well, having proper corporate responsibility, then they will just keep producing less and they'll just keep managing these micro businesses.
Exactly, and then it should just be a cycle. Oh, thank you so much, Bimisola Alonge, Senior Development Analyst with STES Business. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just slip and go into the markets now, starting with equities. Since Will is not here, I guess it falls on me to take that up. Well, thank God that the market bounced back yesterday. The Nigerian equities reversed its one-week consecutive descent and traded positive, driven by investors' interest in Nestle. And the all-share index advanced by 0.28%, almost 3%, still within the 47,000 points. And then month-to-date return moderated, minus 0.2%, while the year-to-date return increased 10.4%. Total volume traded for yesterday, it was in the red, though. I guess the good vibes did not get there at 336.31 million. Value was 5.86. That went up compared to the previous day, and deals was also in the green. Now, looking at the sectors now, banking is still in the red. Oil and gas is back. Thank God for that. For 2 days, they were deep in the red. Yesterday, they ended 0.11%. Industrial goods still in the red, although very marginal there. Consumer goods gained more than 2%. Well, let's have Tajudeen Olayinka now joining us to give us a better understanding of what took place in the market yesterday. Good morning, Tajudeen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, Amy. Thank you for having me.
Good. So after 1 week of having the bear roaring at us, now we have the bull back. What was different yesterday? What brought back the bull to the market?
Okay, many factors. Prior to that, yesterday's, partial recovery, market have shown some sign of, investors, especially speculators, taking advantage of the fact that the prices had moved to a level where they thought that they should actually take their profit and exit some of these stocks. Don't forget also that prior to the release of full year results by some of these companies and an announcement of dividends, prices had moved quite significantly. And so those speculators felt that it was an opportunity for them to take their profit and move on, or take the profit and wait and allow the prices to come back and to come down again and enter those stocks. I think that was what largely played just between last week and part of this week. You see bargain hunters and profit takers operating side by side, and that is what normally see after results have been announced.
So profit takers have been having an upper hand. Now, do we see a consistent green now from today, or do you see us going back?
No, market is still maintaining this particular trend. It will be up and down until it gets to a point where there will be no profit for any one of them to take again, and then they now market now stabilizes and then begin to move up. Especially when now that we are also expecting first quarter results to start coming in by beginning of April. So except there are new information that can excite the market. It's unlikely that you see very aggressive movement, whether prices dropping or prices going up. It will just be more of a balanced market that we see around this time.
Why does it seem like the earnings season did not really have an impact, or at least the desired impact on investors' desire and taste?
Yes, some investors, especially those of them who prefer to take their profit from the market, will not wait for that. Will not wait for the dividend. There's also this category that anytime prices have moved to a level where they think that market has actually reached its peak, they tend to do short selling. When I say short selling, these are speculators that go and borrow stocks and sell to take profit and be able to buy back later. So those also play a role by depressing share prices and making even some investors who don't know what is happening also panic and sell alongside with them. So these are things that are playing out. But truly, prices had moved significantly before results were announced, and so those investors who had the capacity to forecast what those earnings will be are taking position ahead of others, and so they are the ones selling down now to be able to take their profit and move on.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Tajuddin Olayinka, stockbroker at Valmont Securities, for helping us understand that. Let's see a little bit of what happened in the fixed income market. We see that the federal government bonds yesterday had, the most favored yesterday was the 23rd of February 2028. It had a total of 8 deals. That's for February 2028. We also had, I've got the 23rd of March 2025, also the next favored. The Treasury Bills was also not so busy, just 2 deals at the end of the day now. Both the 9th of February 2023 and the 10th of March 2022 had just 1 deal each. And the CBN had 11. Normally, so the CBN bills will be so quiet. That space is normally so quiet, but it was a bit busy yesterday, valued at 21.75 billion naira. That was the total value of transaction yesterday, while OMO had just 2 billion naira at the close of trading yesterday. Those were the transactions at the market yesterday. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll do a weekend opening call to London. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels. You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Well, we talked about oil prices earlier on the show, and of course I know that the UK also has its own input and impact when it comes to the swing going on in the oil space. So we have Juliana joining us from London now to tell us what's going on. Hello, Juliana. What reactions do we have? I mean, needless to say that there will be increase in fuel prices will lead to people paying more for food in shops, in restaurant, transport. What are the reactions trailing this warning?
Good morning, Inni. Please, if you permit me, we just had some breaking news, actually, about Roman Abramovich, who is the famous Russian owner of Chelsea Football Club. He has actually just a couple of minutes ago been sanctioned by the British government. This is a huge story because, of course, a couple of weeks ago, he seemed to be right in the front of and centre at peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. He has been known to be a very close ally to the Putin regime. But, of course, he has been living and working in London for the past 15 to 20 years. He was once a Russian statesman in a throwaway town just outside Moscow. So that's breaking news. There will be more on this because, of course, what are the ramifications for Chelsea Football Club, which is a £1 billion football club, very successful across the world. Now, back to what you were saying about the rise in oil. This is a huge issue, not just for businesses, but, of course, for consumers. I think yesterday to fill up your car with a litre of petrol or diesel was costing about £1.65p per litre. It's currently increasing by between 2 and 5 pence per day. And this, of course, is completely to do with the invasion of Ukraine. Lots of concerns about what does happen if indeed the entire world decide to ban any Russian oil exports. That is likely going to lead to a hole of about 4.2 million barrels of oil a day. And there isn't enough oil in the Middle East, America and Africa to fill that hole, which is why there are some suggestions from British ministers that a price of a barrel of Brent crude could reach about $240. It was $140 on Monday. Today it seems to have settled down to about $111. But this is trickling down on consumers because we know HGV drivers, which are, well, the HGV cars and vehicles, which are the lorries used to get food around Britain, is fueled by diesel, and diesel is rising much faster than the cost of petrol. So many concerns here, people watching, waiting, holding their breath. And of course, in a couple of weeks, we have these rises in national insurance tax as well as energy bills.
Yeah, energy bills. Well, I'm sure that story with Abramovich, you would continue with Ladi later on at 1:30. I'm sure by then we'll have more details. But at a time like this, UK is planning to inject £4 billion into shipbuilding. You know, it kind of seems out of what's going on in the world at this time. So what's this about?
Well, yes, of course, there are still domestic policies that have to be undertaken. And today, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his government have announced this £4 billion of cash injection into the historic shipbuilding industry in the UK. It currently supports about 42,000 jobs. And over the next 30 years, Britain want to build 150 naval vessels. And of course, I think the timing is pretty clear. I think Europe, as well as Britain, are trying to build their defence against an onslaught of the rest, whilst the West tries to defend itself. I think Boris Johnson is keen to upskill those who are working within the sector, also galvanise the industry, bring back some of its old glory days, and try to bring some new innovative tech so they can make sure that the historic shipbuilding sector within the UK can be passed down to further generations. I think that's really what today's announcement was all about.
All right, Juliana, thank you so much. We'll have you again at 1:30 during Business Incorporated. Well, let's move over to the crypto space now. I know yesterday, Ladi had a bit of cherry news with the price of Bitcoin. I don't think it has that pace today.
Well, you know, most markets had a breather yesterday with, you know, markets in the global space, and Bitcoin wasn't left out. Bitcoin actually jumped, you know, breaking the 40K resistance and actually touched 42,000. But this morning, it's not the same story. We're having a pullback this time. Market cap is down about 4.35%. It's $1.75 trillion. It's trying to get back above that $2 trillion mark. Was getting a resistance there. 24-hour volume traded $96.10 billion. It's up about 4.39%. And we see Bitcoin dominance 42.72%. Price of Bitcoin this morning, $39,317. We see it's down 5% this morning. Most traders sold on that quick rally that we had yesterday that got to about $42,000. Volume traded $32.97 billion traded in Bitcoin. Price of Ethereum still struggling to get above the $3,000 mark. It's trading at $2,589 this morning, down 4.80%. Volume traded $13.98 billion. And we see it's mostly red on the top alts by market cap, talking about what's happening in the market. And market sentiment is fear right now, not extreme fear like yesterday. All right, let's bring in Bjorn Martins now, CEO Passive Income Token, to bring us up to speed. Hello, Bjorn. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi. How are you doing?
I'm good. Great to have you. So, you know, Ethereum fees, transaction fees have been, you know, high for a long time. Better part of last year with minting tokens, having trading, normal trading on the Ethereum blockchain has been really expensive. Well, I'm seeing a report now that the transaction fees, that's the gas fees, are trending down, you know, at this point. What do you think is causing this trend?
There's several reasons for that, I'm sure. Definitely the market is just a little bit more inactive than it was in the bull run, as we are in a kind of a bear market. The price doesn't really say it, but there's less activity in the market. The second reason is that Ethereum is continuously updating their blockchain. And at the moment, we're in a new stage where they have increased the efficiency of the smart contracts, the second layer, as they call it. And that's now all running a bit more efficient. But they don't come even close to chains as the Binance Smart Chain or Matic with the gas expenses.
Right, and I know, you know, being a developer, you know, you have to make a choice between, you know, which blockchain to actually use to deploy your project. And I know you're a player, you know, in the play-to-earn space. Tell us about Metabot. I know That's one interesting project now happening right now.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, Metabot is also an NFT project, creating a whole new metaverse on the Binance Smart Chain, so doing it a different way around for once. We believe that the Binance Smart Chain is a cheaper chain, more accessible chain, but also stand up to the standard and level that we need. Metabots is an amazing metaverse game where robot boxing will be happening like the movie Real Steel. And we all know the movie Real Steel is inspired by that, and we all love robot boxing. So a really good combination of Metabots, robot boxing with the metaverse is really something technology-wise. People love the concept. It's a great combination. So yeah, it's a real hot project that's running at the moment in pre-sale.
Brilliant, and you can actually earn money while playing the game. Quite interesting, and I like boxing.
It's play to earn.
And I like
just play the game and earn money. Simple as that.
Fantastic. All right, Bjorn, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. See you later, Adi.
All right. Okay, looking at the top odds by market cap, there we see it's mostly red with Solana, the biggest down there, is down about 6.74%, and XRP is still not able to get above the 80-cent mark at this point. But the top gainers there, we see ICX and Waves, that's Icon, up 42% this morning. Waves, that's decentralized exchanges, up about 31%. We see a Near Protocol there, $10.90. It's up 2.32%. Not a very robust top 5 gainer list, but you know, looking at the loser list there, in its double-digit losses, we're seeing from the pullback, you know, with bears selling on each rally they see in this market. You know, obviously, geopolitical tensions still weighing, you know, on the market, and investors are quite cautious at this point, so they're taking profit at any chance,
Yeah, so it's a global village. The world is a global village. So, I mean, I don't think any market can escape, you know, the tensions going on in one part of the world. It's in the oil market, it's in the commodities market, it's in countries. So, I mean, this is expected.
No market is exempt.
It's spared. Nobody's spared. Thank you so much, Ladi.
All right.
Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We have a final one tomorrow. Just before next week, we have a final one tomorrow. And that will be Thank God It's Friday episode. Don't forget, we're still celebrating the women. So join us to do the final one tomorrow here on Business Morning. I'm Ini John Mekwa. 1:30, there'll be Business Incorporated updates from the world of business. Join us then.